Welcome back to another video here at ATxSG. I'm Ben Wodecki and I'm honored to be joined by Lian Jye Su from ABI. It's a pleasure to have you here. How's it going?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Not bad, all things considered. It's been a long day so
Definitely,
far.
I can completely agree.
Definitely. But we're here today to kind of have a frank conversation about innovation and technologies spanning across the world.
Yes.
So at ABI, you're looking globally.
Indeed.
But I wanted to ask you with regards to AI, robotics, what kinds of things are you seeing in kind of the Asian market that you feel are at a further ahead in terms of pace than, say, the US or Europe?
Yeah. So there are sort of like two different angles that we can sort of discuss. So from the policy standpoint, I think in the APAC market, there's a lot more direction from the governments in this part of the world, basically. So if you look at China and Singapore, both government has been trying to push sort of the advancement of digital transformation as well as the adoption of robotics in this region. So if you look at China, where big e-commerce vendors like Alibaba, JD.com, they have been trying to digitalize their warehouses, trying to adopt a lot more warehouse automation solutions. I think in Singapore, there's a very distinctive push from the government to adopt more AI in sort of the enterprises, as well as sort of try to push for, I think, in this conference, the quantum computing side of things. There is a concerted effort from a policy standpoint to push through. But then also the other angle is the adoption of or the willingness to adopt this solution from an enterprise standpoint. I think when we look at, let's say, the warehouse automation in the western part of the world, a lot of the innovation revolves around sort of brownfield deployment. So it's about sort of putting in robots in sort of established locations or in sort of existing infrastructures. Whereas because these infrastructures are new and rare in APAC, a lot of them are only being rolled out in recent years due to the expansion of the e-commerce market. So you see a lot more greenfield deployments here. So greenfield means that they get to adopt a different type of technology. So if you kind of think about the difference between AMR and AGVs, or what the industry calls the autonomous mobile robots versus the automated guided vehicles, AGVs started sort of like getting really popular because of the Kiva system in the Amazon warehouses. Now that get extremely popular in Asia because of all the new warehouses being rolled out by Alibaba, by JD.com. Whereas like in the US, there's this slight pivot towards using AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, because they can sort of this robot tends to work better in sort of brownfield infrastructure. So you don't have to rip out everything and reinstall. You can just deploy them on the spot. They can collaborate with the human employees. They don't really need like new infrastructure support. So there's that two interesting angle that is that's unique to APAC.
One thing that I've picked up on from my work in terms of reporting on this is one thing that I think that is kind of puts APAC further ahead than the US, in my opinion, is autonomous vehicles, right?
Yeah,
I think
that's another thing. So
absolutely breathtaking how fast China and to a lesser extent places like Japan are moving ahead with AV. Yeah, is that surprising to you, or from your view, what you've seen?
Yeah, I think not really, right? So I think going back to the point that I made earlier is that I think there is the concerted effort coming in from the central government in China, trying to push for greener, I guess, more power efficient, and then sort of smarter transportation system. So definitely, there's a lot of effort to get the industry to rally their flag around a technology such as AV. If you look at the recent announcement by Pony AI, they are sort of launching a robotaxi service in Chengdu, China, and then that is sort of like a good example on sort of how China is trying to get ahead of the competition. Obviously, there is, I think, also partially due to the fact that China kind of lose out in the first leg of the innovation. They lose out on they miss out on Tesla. They lose out on a lot of the sort of like the EV revolution. I think AV sort of gives China this opportunity to catch up with the technology, and that's why they are extremely focused on that front.
it's been crazy. You picked up on Pony AI, and they're not just testing in places like Beijing or Shanghai.
Yes.
They are testing in like Zhejiang. They are testing in Guangzhou, places that, okay, to a Western individual like myself, might not seem like an ideal market, but then these are, markets that are growing extremely quickly. Is there anything else that you're seeing kind of in terms of maybe China or to a lesser extent some of the other nations in that market that you're thinking, places that you never even think of for testing, for example, not just AVs but general tech?
No, I agree, and I think sort of one of the reasons why that happens, though, if we take a step back, is because like if you want to implement something, let's say in the context of China, so if you're deploying something in Beijing or Shanghai, or let's say in the context of Japan, that would be Tokyo, like it would be extremely difficult to get that favorable policy to support the deployment, just because there's so much existing infrastructure that you have to get around implementing or sort of deploying that new technology in sort of like this, sort of like, as you said, this second tier cities like Chengdu and Zhengzhou and sort of Zhejiang. There is a lot more wiggle room for you to test out new technology. Mainly, it's also because of how sort of expensive this first tier city has become. A lot of the tech company has started to move their headquarters to the tier 2 cities, and it's just much easier for them to hire people and obviously at the same time test out this new technology. And I kind of foresee that's going to happen in sort of in Japan, in South Korea, but I think in Southeast Asia in general, it's still going to happen in Singapore first, whether you like it or not, because this seems to still be the place where you get the best talent in the region, you get the best companies in the region.
No, I agree. I even think it was crazy that last March, the Vietnamese government was sponsoring an AV project, right? That to me is incredible that, these sorts of markets are, not just producing in one or two areas of tech, and that there are so much in the talent workforce that are coming through. But you don't just look at APAC, you look globally. What kind of things are you seeing, kind of Western, European side of things? What's exciting you in the AI world at the moment, generally?
Yeah, so there is a lot of momentum around automating processes in the enterprise space. So we talk about enterprise automation with either RPA or sort of just AI in general, right? So there are sort of AI being deployed for natural language understanding, for speech recognition, for optical character recognition, sort of anything that can help to, in some cases, reduce the customer churn rate, but also at the same time to alleviate sort of any impact that comes from the Great Resignation that happens last year. But then on the other hand, there is a lot of development around edge AI. So basically AI being deployed outside of the hyperscale data center in either sensors or on devices, in gateways or on-prem servers. So basically AI, they are extremely tiny, very power efficient, that goes into smartphones, that goes into autonomous vehicles, and also sort of in drones and robots, where it kind of allows these devices to not just sort of fully reliant on cloud infrastructure, but also sort of like being able to be deployed in places where there's just lacks connectivity, like good connectivity options, right? So they can be extremely power efficient, but also at the same time serve the mission and business critical purposes.
And that improves the markets you touched on, like e-commerce, warehousing, really combining with things like IoT to make the wider applications, more efficient and more affordable as well. Because reducing that size means that the companies aren't spending much on the hardware, right?
Indeed.
That works all round. I think, LJ, that we've touched on an awful lot, and we've covered the whole globe in a very short space of time. Is there anything that you're looking at towards, as in, we've gone halfway through 2022?
Yes.
What can we expect in terms of AI that you're excited about for the rest of this year?
Yeah. So Tiny ML is definitely one of them. So I'm definitely seeing a lot more AI being deployed outside of the cloud environment. But then also at the same time, you're seeing a lot more robotics deployment nowadays. So there's, I think there's more robots being deployed in warehouses, in sort of in also in outdoor environments. So we're talking about security robots. We're talking about ports, AGVs. We're talking about sort of robots being deployed in agriculture and constructions. I think those sort of signifies a larger market adoption, and then sort of a lot more willingness to accept autonomous technology. I think at the end of the day, like even the growth in the AV market also is also a sort of like a representation of how the entire market started to embrace automation in general. So yeah, I'm very keen to see that for the rest of 2022 and probably for the next 5 years as well.
Well, at the end of that, let's have a look and we'll see how it's going. But until then, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Definitely appreciate it.